I was sent on a mission to reproduce with the alien breed. The mission was supposed to be simple, in and out. A standard corporate espionage gig on a backwater lava planet called Pyralia. Retrieve the geological data, leave no trace. But corporate forgot to mention the locals, and they really forgot to mention their welcoming traditions. Now I was in a cage. Not metal bars, but shimmering, humming walls of hard light that made my teeth ache. My name is Kale, and my life had officially gone to shit. The air tasted like sulfur and ozone. Outside the cage, the world was carved from obsidian, lit by rivers of molten rock that flowed in channels along the floor and walls. A throne, hewn from a single massive geode, sat empty at the far end of the chamber. My gear was gone. I was stripped to my undershirt and cargo pants, my boots feeling ridiculously heavy in this oppressive gravity. A door, a seamless slice in the black rock, hissed open. She entered, and the air crackled. She was tall, built with the lean, corded muscle of a predator. Her skin was a stunning shade of turquoise, marked with intricate darker patterns that swirled over her arms and torso, disappearing beneath a simple leather harness and loincloth. Long, straight black hair fell like a sheet of silk past her waist. Her eyes were chips of molten gold, and they pinned me to the back of my cage like a specimen. "Human," she said. Her voice was a low contralto, carrying an authority that didn't need to be loud. "You are the one pulled from the wreckage." I pushed myself off the shimmering wall, trying to project a confidence I absolutely did not feel. "And you're the welcoming committee? 5-star service. The cage is a bit much, but I love what you've done with the place. Very fiery." A corner of her lip twitched. Not a smile, something sharper. "Sarcasm. My tutors spoke of this trait in your species. A sign of weakness, masked as wit." "Yeah, well, your tutors sound like a barrel of laughs," I shot back, gripping the invisible wall. It zapped me, a nasty jolt that made my arm spasm. "Fuck." She glided closer, her movements fluid and utterly self-assured. "You are Kyle, a soldier, a killer for credits." "I prefer freelance risk mitigator," I grunted, rubbing my arm. "How do you know my name?" "Your little ship screamed its secrets as it died." She stopped just outside the barrier, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from her skin. "The elders decreed your death, an intruder, a contamination." "Great, so are we waiting for a special occasion, or can we get this over with? I've got places to be." My heart was hammering against my ribs, a frantic drum against the low hum of the cage. This was it. Some alien bitch in a leather bikini was going to shank me in a volcano lair. Not the glorious death I'd envisioned. The decree was amended. Her golden eyes raked over me, a slow, deliberate appraisal that was anything but clinical. It felt like she was peeling my skin back, looking at the meat and bone underneath. "I have invoked the Cathar, the right of challenge." "The what now? Is that like a game show? What do I win? A new speeder? Please say it's a new speeder." She ignored my desperate flippancy. "I am Zelia, daughter of the first vein, heiress to the obsidian throne." She placed a hand on her chest, a gesture of immense pride. "And I have chosen you as my challenger." My brain stalled. "Challenger? Look, lady, I think there's been a mistake. I'm not a challenger, I'm a smuggler. A very unlucky smuggler at the moment. I don't challenge people, especially not ones who look like they could snap me in half." "You will," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that was somehow more intimidating than a shout. "Because the alternative is the execution block. The elders will grant me this, my right as heiress. You will face me in the arena. You will fight. And when I defeat you, you will belong to me." A cold dread, colder than anything in this lava-lit hellhole, slithered down my spine. "Belong to you? What the hell does that mean?" Zelia's smile finally came, and it was the most terrifying, predatory, and undeniably erotic thing I had ever seen. "It means, human, that your mission has changed. You will not be retrieving data. You will be proving your worth." And then, she leaned so close her lips were almost touching the energy barrier. "You will reproduce with me." Zelia didn't wait for my sputtering, horrified response. She turned, her black hair fanning out behind her, and barked a command in her harsh, guttural language. The hard-light cage dissolved with a pop, leaving me blinking in the sudden, unfiltered heat of the chamber. 2 guards, built like her but broader and less elegant, grabbed my arms. Their grips were like steel vices. "Hey, hands off the merchandise," I gritted out, struggling instinctively. It was useless. They were immovable. Zelia glanced back, one perfect eyebrow arched. "Your species values displays of pointless resistance, I see. How quaint. Bring him." They dragged me out of the throne room and into a series of corridors carved directly from the living rock. The air grew hotter, thicker with the smell of scorched minerals. The only light came from the dull red glow seeping through cracks in the walls, veins of magma pulsing just beneath the surface. It was like being dragged through the planet's circulatory system. I was a virus, and they were the antibodies taking me to be purged. We emerged into a vast cavern, a sort of natural amphitheater. A circular pit of black sand dominated the center, surrounded by rising tiers of rock where hundreds of her people, the Zokar, were gathering. They were a mix of turquoise like Zelia, and a deeper ochre-skinned caste who seemed to be laborers or lower-class soldiers. All of them had the same hard, predatory look. In a shadowed alcove overlooking the arena sat 3 ancient-looking Zokar males. Their skin was paler, their bodies less muscular, more withered. The patriarchal elders, I presumed. They radiated a palpable aura of disapproval. Their golden eyes narrowed into slits as they watched me being hauled toward the pit. "This is the arena of the Cathar," Zelia explained, meeting me at the edge of the sand. The guards released me, shoving me forward. I stumbled but caught my balance. "Here, matters of honor, succession, and mating are decided. You people have a fucked up dating scene," I muttered, scanning the crowd. Not a friendly face among them, just hard, judgmental stares. "It is not a date," she corrected, her tone sharp. She began to circle me, a predator sizing up its prey. Her own harness had been supplemented with armored plates on her shins and forearms. "It is a crucible. We believe the body cannot lie. A warrior's strength, their will, their very soul is laid bare in combat. A worthy mate must prove their spirit can endure. They must be strong enough to be claimed." "Claimed," I repeated, the word tasting like ash. "So I fight you, you beat my ass, and I become your boy toy. That's the deal? Your slang is crude, but the assessment is functional." Her eyes met mine across the few feet of sand separating us. There was no mockery in them now, just a deadly, focused intensity. "The rules are simple. No killing. The goal is not death, but submission. You must force me to yield, or I will force you." She held up a hand, and another Zokar brought her a staff of polished obsidian. She tested its weight, swinging it in a deadly arc that hummed through the hot air. I was unarmed. "Seems fair," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "I have my body, my training," she said, as if that explained everything. "You have yours. If it is insufficient, you are unworthy." The elders in the alcove murmured amongst themselves, their displeasure a low rumble. Zelia's jaw tightened. This was about more than me. This was about her and them. I was just the pawn in their power struggle. Fine. If I was going to be a pawn, I'd be the most goddamn difficult pawn they'd ever seen. "So what happens if I win?" I asked, a reckless idea forming in the panicked recesses of my mind. "If I make you yield." The entire amphitheater, which had been buzzing with conversation, went dead silent. Even the lava seemed to flow more quietly. Zelia stopped circling. She stared at me, her golden eyes wide with something I couldn't decipher. Shock? Anger? Or something else? "That has not happened," she said slowly. "In 1,000 cycles. There's a first time for everything, sweetheart," I shot back, dropping into a loose, familiar fighting stance. My special forces training screamed at me about the absurdity of this. Unarmed against a superior opponent, in an alien deathmatch. But the defiant part of my soul, the part that got me into messes like this, was roaring. "You want to see if my spirit can endure? Let's fucking dance." A deep, resonant gong sounded, echoing off the cavern walls. The trial had begun. The crowd roared, a single, bloodthirsty sound. Zelia didn't hesitate. She lunged, the obsidian staff a black blur aimed at my head. I dropped, the staff whistling through the space where my skull had been a second ago. I rolled, coming up on my feet, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. She was fast, faster than she looked. My military training was all about efficiency. End the threat. Use the environment. Here, the environment was sand and an audience, and the threat was a 7-foot-tall turquoise Amazon with a big fucking stick. She swung again, a low sweep aimed at my legs. I jumped, the staff hissing under my boots. I landed and charged in, closing the distance. That was my only chance. Inside the reach of her weapon. She wasn't expecting it. Her golden eyes widened in surprise as I slammed my shoulder into her midsection. It was like hitting a rock wall. She grunted, staggering back a single step, but that was all. My shoulder screamed in protest. She brought the butt of the staff down, and I twisted away just in time, the obsidian striking the sand with a heavy thud. I used the opening, grabbing the staff with both hands. We wrestled for it, muscles straining. The physical reality of her was overwhelming. The heat of her skin, the scent of her, like ozone and hot cinnamon, and the sheer raw power coiled in her limbs. She was stronger. I knew that, but I was meaner. I kicked out, my boot connecting with her knee. She snarled in pain and her grip loosened for a fraction of a second. It was enough. I ripped the staff from her grasp and flung it away. It skittered across the sand, out of reach. The crowd gasped. The elders leaned forward, their ancient faces masks of disbelief. Zilia stared at her empty hands, then back at me. A slow, dangerous smile spread across her face. "Good," she breathed. "No more toys." Then she came at me with her bare hands. The fight changed. It wasn't about weapons anymore. It was about bodies. It was grappling, striking, a brutal ballet on black sand. She had the reach and the strength, but I had the training. I knew how to break holds, how to use leverage, how to find pressure points. I ducked under a wide swing and drove my knuckles into her ribs. She absorbed the blow with a grunt and hooked a leg behind mine, sending me sprawling onto my back. The sand was hot against my shirt. Before I could move, she was on me, her weight pinning me down. Her face was inches from mine, her black hair curtaining us from the roaring crowd. Her chest heaved, her breath coming in hot pants against my cheek. "You are more skilled than your soft appearance suggests, human," she panted, her golden eyes blazing. "Don't judge a book by its cover, princess," I rasped, trying to buck her off. It was useless. She had me pinned. Her body was a dead weight of muscle and heat. "I always get to the good part eventually." "Is this the good part?" she asked, a genuine, if slightly mocking, curiosity in her voice. She shifted her weight, her hips grinding against mine in a way that was probably accidental, but sent a jolt of pure electricity straight to my groin. My body, the fucking traitor, responded instantly. "This is what your species calls getting on top?" she pressed, misinterpreting my panicked gasp. A declaration of dominance before the final act? A wave of heat that had nothing to do with the lava washed over my face. Oh, this was a misunderstanding of epic proportions. "That's not exactly what it means," I stammered. Her brow furrowed. "Then what does it mean?" "It means shit." I twisted, trying to use her confusion as a distraction. I managed to get an arm free and shoved hard against her shoulder, rolling us both over. Now I was on top. I had her pinned, my legs straddling her waist, my hands trapping her wrists in the sand beside her head. The crowd went absolutely insane. For a single, glorious moment, I had won. I was on top of the alien warrior princess, her powerful body trapped beneath mine, her golden eyes wide with shock. The roar from the Zokar crowd was deafening. I could see the elders on their feet, their faces contorted in outrage. I had done the impossible. I had dominated the daughter of the first vein. But Zilia wasn't struggling. She lay beneath me, her chest rising and falling rapidly, her eyes locked on mine. The fury I expected to see wasn't there. Instead, there was a strange blazing light, a mixture of surprise and something else, something that looked unnervingly like approval. "You have bested me," she breathed, the words seeming to cost her a great deal. Her wrists strained against my grip, not to escape, but as if testing my strength. "So yield," I panted, my own lungs burning. My body was a tapestry of new aches and bruises. "Say it." She just stared at me, and a slow, enigmatic smile touched her lips. "The ritual does not require words for this, human, only action." Then she did something I never could have predicted. She relaxed completely. Her body went from tense and coiled to soft and pliant beneath me. She tilted her head back, exposing the long, elegant column of her turquoise throat. It was an act of absolute submission, a silent surrender. My mind reeled. This wasn't how fights worked. You don't just give up when you're pinned. You fight to the last breath. But this was a ritual, and I was beginning to realize I didn't understand a single goddamn rule. The elders were shouting now, their harsh voices cutting through the din of the crowd. Zilia's eyes flickered toward them, a flash of defiance in their golden depths. Then she looked back at me. "They say you are unworthy," she whispered, her voice for me alone. "They say an off-worlder cannot complete the Cathar. Prove them wrong, claim your victory." Claim my victory? What the hell did that mean, punch her? Demand her spaceship keys? My hesitation was my undoing. I was a soldier, a survivor. I wasn't a ritual participant. The confusion must have shown on my face. That brief moment of uncertainty was all the opening she needed. With a surge of explosive power that seemed to come from the very planet beneath us, she bucked. It wasn't a struggle, it was a reversal. I was thrown off balance, my grip on her wrists broken. In a movement so fast it was a blur, she was on top of me again, but this time it was different. There was no struggle, no contest. It was a final, decisive act of dominance. She straddled my chest, her weight a crushing, undeniable reality. She took both of my wrists in one of her powerful hands, pinning them above my head. With her free hand, she tilted my chin up, forcing my gaze to meet hers. Her face was flushed, her lips parted, her eyes burning with a triumphant fire. "You had your chance, Kale," she breathed, her voice a low, husky growl. "You proved your strength, you proved your will, but you hesitated to claim your prize." She leaned down, her lips brushing against my ear. "And in the Cathar," she whispered, her hot breath sending a shiver down my spine despite the oppressive heat. "Hesitation is surrender." A different kind of roar went up from the crowd. Not of shock, but of primal approval. The gong sounded again, its deep tone signaling the end of the trial. Zelia had won. She hadn't forced me to yield with words. She had simply taken the victory. And as I lay there, pinned beneath her, my body aching and my pride in tatters, a terrifying thought echoed in my skull. The fight was over, which meant the next part of the ritual was about to begin. Zelia didn't gloat. She simply stood, pulling me to my feet with an effortless strength that belied the brutal fight we'd just endured. My body screamed in protest. Every muscle ached. A cut on my cheekbone was dripping blood onto the black sand. The crowd's roar was a physical force washing over us. Zelia raised our clasped hands. Her grip on my wrist was still ironclad, and the sound intensified. She had her victory. The elders were stony-faced, their displeasure radiating from their alcove like a cold wave, but they were silent. The ritual had been followed, however distasteful they found the outcome. "It is done," she said, her voice carrying over the din. She turned and began walking, dragging me behind her like a prize won at a carnival. The guards fell in around us, a moving wall of turquoise muscle, parting the sea of Zokar. I stumbled after her, my mind a chaotic mess of pain, exhaustion, and a deep gnawing dread. We left the arena, plunging back into the dark, magma-lit corridors. The silence here was a stark contrast to the roar of the crowd, broken only by the sound of our footsteps and my ragged breathing. "Where are we going?" I managed to ask, my throat raw. "My chambers," she replied without looking back. "The rite is not complete." I thought the fight was the rite. "The fight proves the worthiness of the vessel," she said, her voice echoing slightly in the stone tunnel. "The union seals the bond." We arrived at another seamless stone door. It hissed open at her approach, revealing a room that was starkly different from the rest of this rock-hewn hell. It was spacious, the walls polished to a mirror-like sheen, reflecting the soft, shifting light from a massive lava lamp, or rather, a literal pit of slow-moving, contained magma in the center of the room. Furs and woven fabrics were draped over low-slung stone furniture. It was Spartan, yet undeniably hers. The door hissed shut behind us, cutting off the outside world. We were alone. She finally released my wrist. The skin was red and chafed. I rubbed it, trying to get the feeling back. I watched her, wary. She moved to a stone basin and splashed water on her face, washing away the grime and sweat of the fight. The water beaded on her turquoise skin. She turned to face me, her golden eyes seeming to glow in the dim, fiery light. The dominant warrior was still there, but something else had crept in. A watchfulness, an uncertainty. "You fought well, human," she said. It sounded like a genuine compliment. "Thanks, you're not so bad yourself for a whatever you are." I leaned against a wall, needing the support. My legs felt like jelly. Now what? Do I get a consolation prize, a hot meal, a ticket off this flaming rock? She slowly shook her head, her wet hair clinging to her neck and shoulders. "I told you, the rite is not complete." She started walking toward me, her bare feet silent on the polished stone floor. My heart rate, which had just started to slow, kicked back into overdrive. This was it, the main event. All my training, all my survival instincts were screaming at me to run, to fight, to do something. But where would I go? And how could I fight her? I'd already lost. My pride was a raw, open wound. "Listen, Zelia," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "This whole reproduce with me thing, it's a cultural misunderstanding, right? Like a bad translation?" "There is no misunderstanding," she said, her voice soft but firm. She stopped just in front of me, so close I could see the flecks of black in her golden irises. She reached out, her fingers gently tracing the cut on my cheek. Her touch was surprisingly gentle, yet it sent a jolt through my entire system. "I chose you, you fought, I won. This is the way, this is the bond." "It's not a bond, it's coercion," I gritted out, even as my body betrayed me, leaning infinitesimally closer to her touch. She tilted her head. "You had the chance to win. You had me. You could have claimed me. You surrendered that right." Her hand slid from my cheek down to the collar of my torn shirt. She tugged, not hard, but with an unmistakable command. "Take it off." It wasn't a request, it was an order. A part of me, the defiant, stubborn part, wanted to refuse, to spit in her eye and go down fighting. But another part, an exhausted, aching, and deeply unnerved part, was tired of fighting. I'd lost. The rules of this insane game were clear. And deep down, a primal, treacherous part of my brain was morbidly curious to see how this ended. With a curse under my breath, I pulled the ragged shirt over my head and let it fall to the floor. The air in the chamber was hot, but a cold sweat prickled my skin. Standing shirtless before her, bruised and battered, I felt completely exposed. Her golden eyes roamed over my torso, tracing the lines of old scars and new contusions. It wasn't a lustful gaze, not yet. It was proprietary, the look of a craftsman examining a tool she had just won. I felt a surge of defiant anger. "Happy?" I snarled. "Did I meet the minimum specs for a breeding stud?" Her eyes flicked up to meet mine. "Your body is a record of violence, but you are not broken. You are strong. That is what matters." Her hand, which had been at my collar, now rested flat against my chest, right over my heart. I could feel the heat of her palm, the slight roughness of her calluses. My heart hammered against her hand. A frantic, trapped bird. Her expression softened, the hard edges of the warrior receding to reveal something else, something I couldn't name. The point of view shifted just for a moment, and I felt a ghost of her thoughts. He is not like the others. The Zokar males would have preened or begged. He just glares. His spirit still fights even in defeat. It is good. The thought wasn't in words, more a wave of feeling that washed over me, disorienting me. A psychic link? Did her species have that? Before I could process it, she leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was a kiss of conquest. Her lips were firm, demanding, tasting of ozone and victory. It was a brand, a seal on the verdict from the arena. I resisted for a second, my hands coming up to push her away, but they stopped, hovering uselessly at her shoulders. What was the point? The fight was over, and a traitorous part of me, the part that had been starved for any kind of contact for too long, leaned into it. My resistance crumbled, not into surrender, but into a different kind of fight. A raw, desperate need crashed over me. I kissed her back, my mouth hard against hers, my anger and frustration and fear pouring into the act. It became a battle of its own, a struggle of tongues and teeth. She made a low sound in her throat, a growl of approval. and her arms wrapped around me, pulling me flush against her. The contrast was intoxicating. The soft curves of her body pressed against the hard planes of her warrior's muscle. She broke the kiss, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "Yes," she whispered, her forehead pressed against mine. This is the union, not submission. A merging of fires. She bit my lower lip, hard enough to draw a bead of blood. Then she licked it away. The small act of violence, followed by that intimacy, sent a shockwave through me. This wasn't just sex. This was a ritual. This was consumption. She began to walk me backward toward a wide, low platform covered in thick furs. My legs hit the edge and I fell back, landing on the soft pelts. She loomed over me, a turquoise goddess silhouetted against the glow of the lava pit. She unclasped her harness, letting it fall to the floor with a soft thud. The loincloth followed. And as I lay there, looking up at her, I knew I was completely, irrevocably fucked. The ritual wasn't just about her claiming me. It was about us devouring each other. During the climax, a searing pain erupted on my shoulder. Zilia's teeth were sunk into my flesh. It wasn't just a bite. It felt like a jolt of energy, of life force pouring from her into me. The spot blazed with a faint turquoise light for a moment before fading, leaving behind a mark that was more than just a scar. It was a claim, a brand. The end was a torrent, a simultaneous crash of release that left us both gasping, limbs tangled in the furs, the only sound in the chamber our ragged breaths and the soft liquid pulse of the lava. Silence descended, a heavy, ringing silence filled with the ghosts of what had just happened. We lay tangled in the furs, slick with sweat, the air thick with the scent of sex and scorched ozone. My body was a spent cartridge, every muscle trembling with exhaustion and release. The mark on my shoulder throbbed with a strange, warm energy. It didn't feel like a wound. It felt like a connection, an anchor. I stared up at the polished obsidian ceiling, watching the shifting red light play across its surface. My mind was a blank slate. The mission, the ship, the data, it all felt like a lifetime ago. A different man's story. The only reality was the heat of Zelia's body beside me, the weight of her leg thrown over mine. She stirred, propping herself up on one elbow to look down at me. The triumphant warrior was gone. The ritual priestess had vanished. The woman looking at me now was something else. Her golden eyes were wide, searching, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of vulnerability in their depths. What the fuck was that? I finally managed to rasp, my voice hoarse. It wasn't an accusation. It was a genuine question. My universe had been tilted on its axis and I needed to find north. She traced the new mark on my shoulder, her touch sending another shiver through me. "That was the Cathar," she said softly. "The ceiling. I marked you. You are mine." "You keep saying that," I said, my old sarcasm a weak defense. "But what does it mean? Am I your slave? Your pet?" A frown creased her brow. "No, not a slave. A mate. The Zokar do not choose mates for love or politics. We choose for strength, for survival. For generations, the elders have arranged pairings to consolidate power, to maintain the purity of their own weak bloodlines. Our people have grown stagnant, complacent." She looked away toward the lava pit and her voice dropped. "My father, the last true warrior on the throne, was killed in a training accident arranged by them. They want to marry me to one of their own insipid sons, to control the throne through a puppet." A piece of the puzzle clicked into place. This wasn't just about her wanting a strong partner. This was a rebellion. "So you needed an outsider," I said, understanding dawning. "Someone strong enough to be a credible choice but with no ties to your political bullshit. Someone who could fight." "I needed a warrior," she corrected, her eyes meeting mine again, fierce and intense. "When your ship crashed, the elders saw only a threat, an impurity. I saw an opportunity. I challenged for you, Kale. I fought for you. I chose you because you fought back, because you did not cower. You met my fire with your own." The confession hung in the air between us. She had risked everything on me, a complete unknown. The weight of it was crushing. All my anger, my feeling of being used, began to curdle into something far more complicated. Respect, and a terrifying flicker of empathy. "So, what are we now?" I asked, the question feeling absurd. Are we like married? Celia's brow furrowed at the unfamiliar word. Married? Yeah, a human thing. A man and a woman make a public bond. They live together, you know. Her face cleared with dawning comprehension, filtered through her own cultural lens. Ah, you mean I own your life, your body is mine to command, and you are bound to my bloodline until your death? A cold lump of ice formed in my stomach. That's one way of putting it, yeah. I swallowed hard. Jesus Christ. This was so much worse than I thought. Is this Jesus Christ a chieftain of your clan? She asked with genuine curiosity. Does he need to be consulted for the alliance? The sheer, earnest absurdity of the question was the final straw. A laugh erupted from my chest, a harsh barking sound that was half hysteria, half genuine amusement. My life was a complete fucking train wreck, but at least it wasn't boring. My laughter died as the stone door to the chamber hissed open. My head snapped around, my combat instincts flaring. 3 figures stood silhouetted against the light of the corridor. The elders. Their withered faces were masks of cold fury. The lead elder, his skin a pale, almost grayish turquoise, stepped into the room. His golden eyes, rheumy with age, swept over the scene. The discarded clothes, the disheveled furs. Us. His gaze lingered on the raw, new mark on my shoulder, and his lip curled in disgust. Blasphemy, he hissed, his voice like rocks grinding together. You have defiled the sacred rite, daughter. You have stained our bloodline with this filth. Zelia moved with lightning speed, flowing from the bed of furs to her feet in a single fluid motion. She stood between me and the elders, her body a proud, defiant shield. She was naked, but she had never looked more powerful. I have followed the rite to the letter, Elder Valerius, she said, her voice ringing with authority. The Cathar was invoked. A challenger was chosen, combat was joined. A victor was declared. A bond was sealed. A bond with an off-worlder, the second elder spat. A creature with no lineage, no honor. The rite is meant to strengthen the Zokar, not pollute us. I pushed myself up, my own anger surging past the exhaustion and confusion. Filth? Creature? I'd had enough of being the passive subject of their cultural drama. I swung my legs off the platform and stood, grabbing my discarded pants. I didn't bother with the shirt. Let them see the mark she'd put on me. I may be an off-worlder, I said, my voice low and dangerous, but I stood in your circle. I fought your champion. That's more than you 3 shriveled old prunes have done in a century, I'd wager. Valerius's eyes narrowed into venomous slits. Your primitive tongue will be silenced soon enough. Guards, seize the alien. He will be executed for his impurity. The heiress will be confined, her title stripped until she can be cleansed. 2 massive guards stepped forward from the hallway, their obsidian staffs held ready. My mind raced. There was no escape. We were trapped. This was it. Game over. But then I looked at Zelia. She stood her ground unflinching, but I could see the subtle tension in her shoulders. She had gambled and lost. She had staked her future on me, and now it was all coming crashing down. A strange clarity washed over me. My mission was gone. My life as I knew it was over. The only thing I had left in the entire universe was this insane, terrifying, powerful woman, and the mark she had burned into my flesh. Fuck it. If I was going to die on this rock, I was going to die on my own terms. I stepped forward, moving to stand beside Zelia, not behind her, beside her. Our shoulders brushed. I felt a jolt, a spark from the connection of our skin. You're wrong, old man, I said, my voice steady. I looked from Valerius to the other elders, meeting their hateful stares without flinching. I remembered the words Zelia had used, the ritualistic cadence. I decided to gamble too. The Cathar is a crucible of spirit, is it not? It lays the soul bare. The elders exchanged uncertain glances. It was one thing for Zelia to speak the rites. It was another for a creature they considered an animal to do so. I was challenged, I continued, my voice growing stronger, echoing Zelia's earlier pride. I fought. I proved my spirit was not weak. The bond was sealed not by coercion, but by combat. The heiress did not defile your bloodline. She chose to strengthen it. I held up my arm, displaying the mark on my shoulder. It seemed to pulse with a faint inner light in the presence of her. This mark was given, and it was accepted. To deny it now, that is the true blasphemy. To deny the judgment of the arena itself. A dead silence fell over the room. The guards hesitated, their staffs half lowered. I was using their own sacred bullshit against them, and they didn't know how to react. Zelia turned her head slightly, her golden eyes wide with shock and a dawning brilliant hope. I had just publicly, willingly claimed my place in the ritual. I had accepted the bond. I had declared myself her mate. Valerius stared, his jaw working silently. My little speech had thrown a wrench into his plans. Their power was built on the unyielding foundation of ritual and tradition. I had just used that foundation to build a fortress around Zelia and myself. He couldn't execute me for accepting a sacred rite, not without undermining the very system that gave him authority. The law is clear, he finally snarled, his voice strained. No off-world blood may join a line of the first vein. To show me that law. Zelia's voice cut through the tension, sharp as obsidian. Show me the text carved in the heartstone that says the Ka-Thar is bound by geography. It speaks only of strength, of will, of spirit. Or has your memory faded with your strength, Valerius? It was a masterful stroke. She was calling his bluff, challenging his knowledge of the very laws he sought to wield. The other two elders shifted uncomfortably. They were followers, not leaders. Without Valerius on solid ground, they were lost. The spirit of the law, Valerius began, but his argument was weak. The spirit of the law was honored in that arena today. Zelia boomed, her voice filling the chamber. She took my hand, lacing her fingers with mine. Her skin was warm, her grip firm. His spirit proved worthy. The bond is sealed. It is done. To undo it would be to invite chaos. The ancestors would not forgive such weakness. She squeezed my hand. A silent message. Stay with me. We can win this. I squeezed back. I'm not going anywhere. The standoff stretched, thick and heavy. The guards looked to Valerius for orders, but the old Zokar seemed to have shrunk. He had no move left to play. To kill me now would be a political murder, a blatant defiance of a completed rite, and it would shatter his legitimacy. He had been outmaneuvered by his own traditions. With a final venomous glare that promised future retribution, Valerius turned. "This is not over," he spat, and swept from the room, his two cronies scurrying after him like chastised hounds. The guards gave us one last confused look before retreating, the stone door hissing shut and leaving us once again in blessed, heated silence. We stood there for a long moment, our hands still clasped. The adrenaline began to fade, leaving a profound, bone-deep exhaustion in its wake. We had faced them down, together, and we had won. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. It came out as a shaky laugh. "Well," I said, looking down at our joined hands, "that was a hell of a thing." Zelia finally let go of my hand and sank onto the edge of the fur-covered platform, her bravado melting away to reveal the immense strain she'd been under. "They will not give up," she said, her voice quiet. "They will look for other ways to break us." "Let them try," I said, and to my own surprise, I meant it. A week ago, I was a cynical mercenary who trusted no one. Now I was the bonded mate of an alien warrior princess, standing against the corrupt leadership of her people on a planet made of lava and rock. It was insane. It was terrifying. And it was the first time in a decade I'd felt like I was fighting for something that actually mattered. I walked over to the stone basin and splashed water on my own face. It felt good. I looked at her. Truly looked at her. The fierce warrior, the desperate heiress, the vulnerable woman. I looked down at the throbbing mark on my shoulder. My brand, my bond. A symbol of a life I'd never asked for, but which was now undeniably mine. A slow smile spread across my face. "So," I said, turning back to her, "now that we've dealt with the in-laws, what's for breakfast, wife?" Zelia looked up, and a spark of her old, confident fire returned to her golden eyes. A slow, predatory grin spread across her lips. "You."